What's up, YouTube? Hiya, YouTube. Have another edition of Storytime for you today.
I'm Neobards.
Hi, I'm Fuerve.
So I'm Mrtear3.
Today on Storytime, we're talking about
being homeless.
Being homeless.
Being homeless.
I was in Cave Junction hitchhiking down to Crescent City, California, when I got picked up in an old blue pickup truck by a young couple.
I once worked for a traveling carnival, and before our trip from a spot in Greenwich, New York to a spot in Blue Hill, Maine, I placed mostly all of my belongings, including my tent, in a separate vehicle because there wasn't enough room for my stuff in the car I was riding in.
So it happened 2 days after I'd been homeless, after I first ended up on the streets. I was 8 years old. I was lost, confused, cold, hungry, tired, all that shit. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know anybody.
Back when I graduated high school, I was in a relationship that is tastelessly known as a fight or fuck relationship, and it is exactly what its name implies. I'm in my mid-30s now, so this has been some years ago, but when I graduated, I moved in with my then girlfriend or lover, what have you, in downtown Atlanta, straight out of high school. This girl was a very volatile and dynamic girl, I tell you. She was something.
I'm sitting at my camp spot by the river in the middle of the night, and I was down by the river because as much as it was cold, wet, and shitty, nobody really went there at the time. So I didn't have to worry about getting found, and that's the last thing I wanted, considering what I had run away from.
They took me down the road a ways, dropped me off at a motel where they were staying for the night, and said, "Hey, if we see you tomorrow, we'll pick you up and take you the rest of the way." Sure, I thought. I'll be long gone by then.
From point A to point B, the driver of the truck with my stuff got pulled over, arrested for an OUI, and the truck got impounded. Needless to say, I arrived in Blue Hill, and my belongings did not.
So I lived with her and worked for her uncle. One night I had stayed out entirely too late, and our relationship was such that it had reached the point to where either somebody was going to die or it was time to move on. I mean, we've all reached that that psychotic breaking point in a relationship. But
I'm sitting there, and I start hearing somebody coming through the bushes, and I'm going, oh fuck, I'm going to get caught, I'm going to get caught, I'm going to get caught. And then this old man comes, drunk as fuck, stumbling through the bushes, and he looks at me and goes, "Hey kid, what are you doing here?" I go, and he goes, "You shouldn't be out this late, it's dangerous."
So I kept walking, all the way across the California border into the mouth of the Collier Tunnel. I sat there on the side of the road until the night fell, with my thumb out, no rides.
He sits down, and we start talking. He's got this really big backpack on, and I tell him why I'm there, what led up to the whole thing, and he ends up going, basically explaining, look, I've got another sleeping bag, I've got a tent, you can use the tent for the night, and you can have the other sleeping bag. I'll stay in the camp area, but I won't come in the tent.
I had nowhere to sleep, so I decided to ask a ride jock if I could crash in the Gravitron overnight. And he said sure. Unfortunately, someone had vomited in the ride before closing, and it was given a thorough hosing.
I rolled out my sleeping bag, bedded down for the night, woke up. The sleeping bag was covered in a sheet of ice, and I couldn't feel my feet. So I got out of the bag, walked around in circles for a long time just to try to get some feeling back into my toes while I waited for the sun to come up over the hills.
one night I had stayed out a little too late. It was one of those nights where I just didn't really come home at all, to be quite honest with you. Gone out to work, and when I had come home that next day, she was none too happy. Now, she was the kind of girl that would get physical in a New York minute, and you've seen my videos. I'm not exactly a petite guy. Not exactly easy to move around. She charges at me full steam, comes at me, tears off a windshield wiper of my car and throws it at my head. Well, my options are this. I can either stay and beat her ass, which obviously isn't an option, or I can just get in my car and make a breakaway. So that's what I did. I got in my car, sped away, windshield wipers a flopping.
I walked down the hill, rolled everything up when the daylight came, stuck my thumb out. 30 minutes later, there they were, old blue pickup truck. So I jumped in, we crossed through the tunnel, and I saw redwoods for the first time in my life as we went around the Smith River.
Long story short, because I broke up with their little darling, I lost my job, I lost my girlfriend, I lost my house, all in one fell swoop. Turns out I had no place to stay. So I thought I would do what any normal cretin teenager would do. I thought I would drive around a while and think about it. That while turned out to be several weeks. That's where my story starts.
The first 2 nights before that, I had thought that the reason I was waking up was because I, was cold and it was wet. No, it wasn't. And it was because I was scared. And I'm willing to admit that. Anyway, I kept waking up through the night, and the man sat up most of the night just sitting out there. And just, hanging out. And then when I woke up in the morning, he was asleep. And I got out of the tent. And I woke him up and I go, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Just call me Smiley."
I would essentially drive around 285 and I would pull over and sleep as long as I could until a cop rolled up and told me to leave. One night I'm sleeping under I'm sleeping several hundred feet from a bridge. I hear this grinding of metal. And I look out my window, it's 3 in the morning. I look out my window and several hundred feet ahead of me, this woman has pulled over because she's blown out her driver's side tire. That's what I heard, was her wheel scraping along the asphalt.
Well, I couldn't sleep on a soaking wet floor, so after wandering the grounds for most of the night, searching for a makeshift bed, I settled down on a picnic table for a restful sleep of, about 3 hours before I awoke in the morning dew.
The thing about being on the road is that you become a bit of a walking confessional, and so while I was in the truck, the young gal, 16 years old, told me that she and her young lover, 18 years old, they were running away together, but they had not yet consummated their relationship. I thought that was very charming.
But that's effectively what happened to me. And then over the next few months, the guy taught me the ropes. He taught me, how to get what I needed to without breaking any laws. He taught me, how to find the best camp spots where nobody's going to fuck with me, things like that. And over time, I ended up getting this group of kids that were all around the same age, that had all been homeless as well. All of us kind of developed all these things. And
we made it all the way to Crescent City, stopped at a strip mall. I hit the liquor store, bought them a bottle of champagne, and sent them on their way, with the hopes of perhaps giving them a magical night to remember.
Yes, I'll admit, I did take things I shouldn't have when I was homeless. Well, not take things I shouldn't have. I never took anything that I didn't absolutely need, and I never took a lot of anything. I think I've made up for it since then. Anyway.
And I'm looking with moderate interest, I'm kind of peering over the dashboard, who's disturbing my sleep. She was having issues changing her tire. So she goes into her trunk and she gets this jack out, and she jacks up her car. She, struggling with the lug nuts or whatever. And I see her tugging on the lug wrench, trying to get the tire loose, and then wham!
Being out there in the cold taught me about my own mortality. It taught me what it's like to be small and how transient life really is.
Out of nowhere, this semi is hauling ass down 85. This woman's ass end, this woman's ass end is literally hanging out into the interstate. The semi hits her. I remember it as if it were yesterday. I remember the shoes just blowing off her feet. And I remember her clothes tearing. And I remember thinking how it looked like confetti. Literally, her head was like, or her body was just like, it looked like somebody had pulled one of those party tricks. Like,
I guess my idea here that I'm throwing out is that not all homeless people are bad. Not all of them are there because they haven't tried hard. This guy had a family. He had been a productive member of society, and then the company started to collapse. And even though he'd been working there for years, they fired him. Well, when they fired him, his wife left him and took the kids, and then also took the house and took all the stuff that they had, and he got screwed.
And being in the warmth of their truck and experiencing secondhand the warmth of their love gave me a bit of perspective on what the really important things in life are.
A lot of people say that have never been there. A lot of people say, "Oh, there's help everywhere." No, there's not. There's supposed help everywhere, and a lot of those organizations, they don't really help as much as they could with the funding they have. I don't know.
The next day I drive back by there, and if you've ever seen an accident investigation site where like someone has died, they go out there and they mark it all up with spray paint, like the skid marks they'll circle with orange paint. There were hundreds of these little orange circles from where they were circling all this woman's body parts, her teeth and eyes and whatever else. Just, and I'll never forget those little orange circles went on for hundreds of feet down the road. I mean, this woman literally exploded.
I guess I just kind of wanted to talk about, something from my perspective, being a homeless kid, kind of pointing out that not everybody out there that's homeless is an asshole. Not everybody out there that's homeless is thinking about themselves all the time.
And that concludes my allotted time to tell you my being homeless story.
That's one of the more memorable things of my story.
I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you, ReverendAtomSmasher, for having me.
So, the moral of the story is, don't be homeless.
So that's a story from when I was homeless. Take care out there. Good luck.